The committee of the whole is back in order. We are on round 2, colleagues. Just one quick clarification for the body. Senator Tulay was right yesterday. On the language between BAVI as well as Sinlaku, the disbursement for the mayors is the same exact language. They just chose to do it a different way. As we go forward now, I need to ask the body, because Department of Education is satisfied with that they're going to get their funding and they're good. So they're working with their federal counterparts today from the management side and, of course, preparation for the schools. So I've excused them. Is there anyone who needs the rest of the agencies and the Mayor's Council, with the exception of Civil Defense and the administration? Please raise your hand. If not, then mayors, DPW, GPD, have a great day. We'll finish round 2 with Department of Administration.
Mr. Chair, real quick, before
yes.
they leave, can we just confirm with the mayors that they received their...
Sure.
Their
one
payment?
question for the mayors. Go ahead, Senator Borja. What's your question, Senator Borja?
I know the checks were canceled. Was the money, are you guys good with the money from DOA?
As far as the amounts in the accounts that were established, the 20 accounts that were established, no, it's still indicating 0.
Okay, we'll work with that with DOA.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a
Mr.
good
Chair?
day. Yes.
Just one more quick
Sure.
question for the mayors before
Sure.
you leave. I was discussing about incorporating language into this budget, and it was said that you would rather have it till fully expended, whatever that's gone your way. Okay. So just to make it clear, Mr. Chair, the 1.8 million that you were talking about earlier actually went back into the account of the government of Guam, because whatever was not used went back into the account. Now, going into BAVI, when we appropriated the 8 million for BAVI, that 1.8 is included into the 8 million.
No, it shouldn't be. Because
that's what I wanted to verify, because can I hear from the...
it should not be, because that 1.8 was the distribution for Sinlaku. So
yes, no.
Yeah.
So the funding that they had in remaining funding, Mr. Chair, it's what I'm talking about. At the end of Sinlaku, they had a balance, and that balance was put back into the general fund. So when BBMR told us there was excess of $8 million left over from what we appropriated the first time, the 25 million, 17 actually million from the general fund, it went back in. Now, when they were talking about asking for that funding back, I think that was included into the... Okay, can I hear it from there? Because I heard differently from, if Georgine can explain.
It should not be, unless it was retracted from DOA, but they're 2 different appropriations. And the appropriation that we did for the 8 million was the balance of the 25 million. So the mayors got 2 appropriations that were standalone. But go ahead and let us know where you're at.
So Mayor, Senator Duenas, that's what we believe as well. Is that on our side, we have no Sinlaku money left over. And if there is money left over, then DOA needs to let us know that the Sinlaku money is still there for us.
So again, President Alec, after Sinlaku, you utilized the full amount that was you did not.
No, it was a balance of 1.8.
So there was a balance, and that balance was returned back to DOA, right? Okay. So now, Mr. Byrne and Lester, the money was returned back because it wasn't fully expended. And then when we appropriated the $8 million for BAVI, we were under the assumption this was funding that was left over. Did that include the balance that was not used in Sinlaku by the mayor's office into that $8 million?
So I think we need to be really clear about these appropriations, right? So the funds appropriated to any agency, Mayor's Council, whichever agency, is appropriated, and if not, it's not ever kind of returned to the general fund. If it's not used, it's available to the general fund.
So it stayed in their account then, and it wasn't returned to DOA, and but in the law, didn't it state that it must be returned back to the wherever it came from? So I would assume that would be the rainy day fund.
Yes, it would have to go. It would have to go back to where it came from.
So in the discussion yesterday about using that, okay, but that 1.8 million balance is sitting in their account right now. It's not into the rainy day fund like the law said.
No, but equally well, the rainy day fund only has to account for what was spent. So there's two different things. There's the appropriation and the cash. The cash wasn't touched if it wasn't spent, and it sits in the rainy day fund. There has to be an accounting entry made to make the cash and the appropriation the same.
So, Mr. Byrne, where does it, again, and I'm kind of confused, sorry, I'm not following when it comes to where that 1.8 million sits today. Is it back in the rainy day fund? Is it still in their bank account, the mayor's bank account? Where is it?
If they didn't use it, it's still
in the rainy day.
It's sitting in the bank.
It's sitting in the
in the bank, because the rainy day fund is a separate account.
Yeah.
So any expenditure that comes from it
okay.
only affects
So it's in
that
the rainy
bank.
day fund then, right, Mr.
Yes.
Byrne? It's
Yes.
sitting
Yes.
in the rainy day fund. It's
Yes.
not sitting in their bank account.
Correct. They don't have a bank account.
That's what I want to make sure, so that, Mr. Chair, as we move forward, we know that there's additional funding in the rainy day fund.
Yes, Senator. So to clear this up, what we would have had to have done is pass a new law which says we now have a new balance for the rainy day fund, because that would have to deappropriate the money we appropriated. So what Ed's talking about is the money never really leaves the rainy day fund as a fund. They distribute that money to the mayor's council.
I understand that.
So the 180, because of the original appropriation, 1.8, is still there. Okay? So if we pass language in this bill that says the 1.8 is still available for the mayors, then they're just going to be able to draw it from the rainy day fund.
Okay, that's what
Because there's never been a deappropriation from the original appropriation.
Okay, but there is clear case
So
that
we
in
need
the
language,
event any
right.
balance is left over, it just maintains.
But
Now,
they
that being
were
said,
being judicious by saying they followed the EO and
Right.
what the EO said in terms of how the appropriation was made. Now, of course, DOA said they could have had some more liberty. They didn't take it, so good enough. But at this point, the 1.8 is still available to them because it hasn't been deappropriated from the rainy day fund.
Okay, thank you. Yes, that's what I understand now from Mr. Byrne. So back to President Alec, the 1.8 sits there in, well, it wasn't utilized. Now you have BAVI. And what is your current balance of BAVI today?
1.6 on our books, Senator.
The current balance of BAVI today that you have not expended is $1.6 million.
Correct.
Okay. So if I'm not mistaken, was the intent to try and get that Sunlaku money, the 1.8, to the Mayor's Council to purchase heavy equipment?
Correct.
So that's
and other recovery items and issues.
because the 1.6 you have right now would not be able to cover your intended intentions of getting heavy equipment, right? So
Correct.
do you have a balance of how much that heavy equipment is going to cost?
Senator, so when we say heavy equipment, we're looking anywhere from purchasing heavy equipment to renting heavy equipment. If you're going to look at a simple backhoe that these mayors really, look at, or actually it's a need out there, you're looking at $189,000 for one new backhoe. So again, that's just a very That's just a minimal, that's just a market research that you could go off of. So yes, that's what one village would want, would be a backhoe. That's a need. And if the backhoe is not readily available for them to purchase, then we would rent.
Okay, so then that means one backhoe would be at about $100,000, and you have 1.8 million of unexpended from Sunlaku and 1.6 million still. So you have over $3 million. Would that mean you're planning on buying backhoes for every village?
Senator, if I may, the 1.6 from BAVI, if in fact that money is redeposited into the account today, we can actually speak for that 1.6 already, because the executive director has purchase orders on her desk ready to, well, she has to redo them because of the time. But the 1.6 can already be spoken for. The 1.8 from Sunlaku is the leftover that if we could receive back, we could use.
For the heavy equipment?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So understanding that, and it's important that we all know that that 1.6 is, already accounted for on expenditures that it's needed. So the 1.8 would actually help you. In your budget bill, did you account for any funding for the mayor's council or the mayor's offices to buy heavy equipment at all in your budget?
Not in
2027,
no.
So you
No.
had no money in there for those equipments.
So we didn't specifically itemize it for heavy equipment, but our request gives the mayor an opportunity to use his or her district funds to purchase the heavy equipment if they choose to, if they desire, and that's of course within their funding limit.
Which it's not there.
Which
So
wouldn't
if,
be enough.
just
if we
not
can
there,
keep to
yeah.
the scope, otherwise we'll
Yeah,
just do
I
a
just
round.
wanted
Yeah,
to
I
make sure
understand.
because of the
Yeah,
funding.
but we're
it's
dealing with
important.
this
What-
bill right now and how we're going to do the appropriation.
which
yeah.
is, Mr. Chair, if I
Yeah.
may, the 1.8, which is not in their hands right
I
now,
understand.
and which is the 1.6 is to make sure it stays there. So that's the reason why we're
Correct.
discussing this amount.
Correct.
And if we are going to allow this additional, giving the funding back, it does have to pertain to what's in FY27, because this money that we are now appropriating, or the governor's special session, a bill that's wiping out all excess revenue for FY26, which means we're not going to be able to fund some of these critical offices. So we need to be conscious of how we spend today, what will reflect tomorrow.
I understand,
So thank you.
but it's already contained in the appropriation. Thank you. Senator Barnett, you had your hand up, and then Senator Joe. If we'll just keep the mayors if we have too much for the mayors, but we'll try to let them go.
Sijus Masi, Mr. Chair, Manana Sijus to the people of Guam, Biba Betnes. I just wanted to thank Director Ariola and Deputy Bonas for their commitment to assess the southern areas that we had discussed. And I just wanted to, if I could amend my ask, if, when you get down to Molesto next week, if you could just make the drive up through Inalahan and see Mayor Ton Chargaloff if there's also a need in all the southern villages. So I just wanted to thank you for that. Also to Mayor's Council President, Mayor Alig, and the Executive Director, I just want to thank you for your insight into some of the shenanigans that were revealed yesterday, and also thank you for your work in the villages as well. And hope you have a good weekend. And also to the Guam Police Department, Sidus Masi. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity. Just wanted to thank them. I know that they're out there doing what they have to do, so definitely appreciate their presence here for providing the information that we got yesterday. Sidus Masi.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Joe, and then Senator Montanani.
Pretty simple question. On the mayor's side, are you aware how much you were actually appropriated from the previous storm, not BAVI? What you were appropriated, you were supposed to get? Because my understanding is that when we did appropriate, it was for response purposes. We're ready now in recovery. We're not in response. We're not responding to a storm coming. We're beyond that. So, do you know how much you were appropriated?
4.7 was for Sunlaku.
4.7 for that storm.
Correct.
And during BAVI, what were you appropriated?
4.8.
Okay. How much did you receive from the first storm?
4.7.
You received all 4.7.
Correct. But
Did
the
you-
balance, there's a balance of 1.8.
Why is there a balance?
Because not all the mayors were able to utilize all the money by the expiration date that was established by our admin office in accordance with the executive order.
you couldn't spend the money to prepare for response. That's what you're saying, right?
Correct.
Because of the timetable.
Because of the timeline, yeah.
Okay. Now, on BAVI, was for response or was it for recovery also?
I think it was for both.
It was for both.
Correct.
And how much money do you have left?
1.6.
And you're not able to spend it all? You're in recovery mode right now, Mr. President. I'm trying to find a way to help you get what you need to get done.
The reason why we weren't able to spend it, sir, is because of what I explained yesterday morning.
The executive order?
No, the checks situation. They stopped, I don't know what's the correct term, closed the account perhaps and wrote the remaining balance to each mayor's office. That's what put everything on hold.
Well, when you mentioned, Mr. President, 1.6, right? That's what you're saying?
Correct.
I'm just trying to understand how. I mean, I talked to the mayor of Deridu, and they receive a check for $6,000. That's quite a few $6,000 check. I mean, maybe
Correct.
DOA can explain what everybody got so that we can understand, because $6,000 for one visit? You need more than just one visit to get to 1.6, and I'm just.
So, Senator, if I could just comment that was our point yesterday, was how did you write a check for a certain amount, for that amount without reconciling with us? We cannot respond to those check amounts. You'll have to check with DOA.
Yeah, Senator, just to clear this up, if you want to go to DOA, that's fine. All those checks are different amounts. I have calls from mayors and others that they were deducted from their from what was supposedly money they spent out of their appropriation. So the check wasn't $250,000. It was like $170 for one mayor, and they don't even know of those expenditures. They said it's not their village. So it was written to them for whatever perceived balances were left. That's probably why Deridu got $6,000, because maybe they're saying they spent already $244.
Understood, Mr. Chairman.
That's why it should be with them.
Then it's going to be, as we're looking at this bill, to be able to identify how we can help the mayors on the recovery. It's until there's reconciliation and all that stuff is done, I can't even see this bill moving forward for BAVI when they're caught in a bind. Gosh, everybody's caught in a bind. I mean, DPW is trying to figure out how to get things done with or without the money. You're gonna look at your budget. Am I correct, Vince? You're gonna try to figure out how to get it done, do the temporary fix, and move on. If you can get additional money, even better.
Yeah, this bill is beyond BAVI. This BAVI situation's already done. The money's there. They're asking for more money after BAVI.
Understood.
So that's what we're trying to do.
I just want to make sure that the map is done correctly, and the mayors get the help they need. DPW and GPD. I'm a former police officer, 100% for GPD. And on civil defense, they were able to do what they need to do and get as much federal grants. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Montanani, you recognize.
Is this counting towards our 10 minutes?
No, we're doing this so that we can release the panel. This is a
Okay,
courtesy to the
just
senators.
wanted to,
There's,
make sure.
there's no time clock right now.
Okay.
We're trying to let them go, and I'm asking what concerns senators have.
Okay. Well, the time was running. That's this one.
No need to run the time.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
I didn't see that. It was behind me. Go ahead.
Just for DPW, because I've also been in contact with some families that Senator Barnett was discussing about yesterday in Molessa, and as well as Senator TYPHOON. So I understand the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers as well as the mayor's office were down there in Molessa yesterday, and I plan on going there next week. Have you had any conversations with the mayor or USAs regarding the deteriorating seawall?
Last night I had conversations, texts with the mayor, a very close friend of mine. So we are scheduling for some reason he mentioned that he submitted a D-land ticket for assistance there. We couldn't find it. So be that as it may, we're scheduling a site visit. We'll schedule a site visit down there early next week to visit, I think it's 3 if not 4 homes. I think I know that there's 2 families. One is the Castro family, and one is the Yamasta. And so we'll take a look at down there. We'll go do a site visit. We'll bring our one of our engineers, and we'll see what we can do to assist the family. But we do have pictures also, So it looks like there's been some substantial soil and beach erosion.
Okay. If you could just let our office know when you plan on going, because we do have a tour that's scheduled as well, but if we can just do it at the same time, that probably would
Yes,
be
ma'am.
more efficient.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just going back to the Mayor's Council of Guam, you were mentioning the 1.8 million. Is this the same as the $1.8 million amendment that we tried to get into the budget? Or is this separate?
No, that would be separate.
Okay. Okay. Thank you to the panel, to the mayors, to the police department, of course, Public Works and Civil Defense and all first responders for their response to Sinlaku and BAVI. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Gumatautau.
Yeah, just a quick question for Public Works, if they're going to excuse you, just real quickly. I know you mentioned in your report that you have the damage assessment summary, but for the record, are all of the damage assessments for all the line agencies complete at this point?
No. We're still receiving damage assessments from different agencies. We have inspectors, we have individuals out there doing inspections, compiling estimates, so it's not complete yet.
So yesterday, the DOA director mentioned there was $250,000 for damage. So can you, for the record, tell us which government facilities sustained damage, or broadly, if you can?
I don't have an updated list. We're still in the at least the way we see it, we're still in recovery. So we're still doing estimates throughout the island.
How about our sister branch, the judiciary? Are you guys getting word that they got damaged too?
I haven't heard anything from them. And because of that, I'm going to assume that they're in fine shape.
All right. That's all my questions for Public Works. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so we will retain civil defense as the front line of this, and of course the administration, and say thank you once again. All of us are very thankful to all of your service. Have a great weekend, gentlemen and gentleladies. Committee of the Whole is back in order. Mr. Speaker, you're recognized at this time on round 2.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you again, the panel for being here. You know, I appreciated all the discussions, the conversations that we were having yesterday. And it helped me to recognize that there's even more confusion here. The governor's bill here asks for an appropriation for response and recovery, but when I look at the language that's contained, the verbiage that's contained in that section, it clearly states here, is hereby appropriated for fiscal year 2026 unappropriated general fund revenues to MAGA'HAGÂ GUHNS for emergency response to Super Typhoon BAVI. It says nothing here. It's in line 8 of page 4. It says nothing here about the recovery. And Mr. Cabana and Ms. Perez, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you submit the paperwork for consideration into FEMA, you clearly have to delineate between response and recovery, don't you?
Correct, Senator. When there is a submission, there's a pre-disaster declaration, and then there's the post. So on the pre, we do the response. That's what triggers.
And so it's very hard. Can you have a copy of the bill?
I have it in front of me, sir.
Can you yourself help to delineate what is response and what is recovery here?
Well, because the word recovery is not included, just page 4, lines from section 2 down to line 8 says emergency response expenses.
That's right.
But we can delineate based on what we've done, which is response and which is recovery.
Understood. But I think for the purposes of your basic accounting, Joe, if you were to get this report here, and let's say this was to pass, how are you going to set up an account that's going to be understandable and accepted by FEMA, delineating response and recovery? Because one of the things they're going to look at is they're going to look at this language.
Sir, like I said, this bill here was for the response and recovery. The way I look at it right now is any damages that's related to the to the typhoon will be an allowable cost if as long as I can justify the damages. As far as the language that's on the bill here, on the line 2, that's I did. This law or this bill was not prepared by by our office, and and this was prepared by in the assistance with BBMR. So I'm not familiar with this.
You're not, yeah, okay. And
But sir, recovery, the word recovery is stated on line 2, section 2, appropriation for Super Typhoon BAVI response and recovery.
yeah, that's the title.
Right.
But if you look at the language, the language which is, what you have to go by. Okay. I don't see it. I don't see it. So therein lies the first, I guess, concern that I have with the language. But let me go back to the initial. Yesterday, Mr. Carlson and Mr. Byrne, while I appreciate the breakdown that was provided on the sheet, and I see how you got to the $13,361,849, it's clearly because that's that figure was chosen not so much for what is necessary to complete the response and the recovery. It's just because that was the money that was available. Is that true?
Yes, sir. Just like Sinlaco, we came up with $25 million, and then we basically, you got to start somewhere.
Understood. Understood.
Sir, this is not an exact science, and Section 2 on page 4, line 1, does say appropriation for response and recovery. It's a bill. I would very much appreciate, Mr. Speaker, if on line 8 you guys would just go ahead and insert response and recovery. I mean, we're debating the bill. We're open for amendments to be able to take care of that.
But yeah, I appreciate that, and it could be done.
Thank you.
But in that, past that line, what is necessary for your response and what is necessary for your recovery? Do you want us to make that?
Well,
Because
we're here really for the recovery, sir.
but your bill says response, Lester.
Yes, sir, and it was written right after we had that special oversight hearing, and at that time, we were only going to submit a bill that took care of the child care and the airport. It was a decision to go ahead and add BAVI while we're down here, so that's what you got.
Okay, so let me phrase it in this one, okay? Can the administration provide this body of the $13,361,849 requested for in this section for the appropriation of response and recovery? Can the administration provide this body with how much do you need for response and how much do you need for recovery? And the reason why I ask this is because when you go and you ask for reimbursement, there has to be that delineation. We cannot just lump it all in one sentence and say, oh, well, this is for response and recovery. So, you know, Mr. Chair, I can't move any more into my questions unless I find out what the difference is between the response and the recovery monies that are being requested. Because yesterday, as we were going through the exercise, we already came up with almost $11,453,796.34 in what the requests are. $1.9 million still short of the $13 million requested. That's one. And secondly, which one is response and which one is recovery? I can't go any more in my line of questioning with regard to this if we don't get that information. And that's necessary. It's necessary. I'm not just going to go ahead and give a blank check and just go ahead and do it. Because then what's going to happen is that you may come back in here and say, well, we're short on response or we're short on recovery. Then another question that I have here, because I recognize that this is based on unappropriated excess. But let me go into another pot of money that we seem to forget. Mr. Byrne, or Mr. Carlson, how much do we anticipate will be the lapses or the funds that will probably lapse before the end of this fiscal year from the executive budget?
Sir, when you're looking at, say, for example, the Governor's Transfer Authority, those are executive branch agencies which, for all intents and purposes, I have some fiscal control over.
Right.
There are some agencies like the Election Commission where we're prohibited from pulling money from them. We took the BBMR, I had my staff take a look at all those particular agencies to see whether or not there was any lapses, and we came up with zero.
Zero.
So we don't anticipate that there will be any lapses from the general fund executive branch agencies for any funds of any consequence to be available for appropriation or the governor's transfer for that matter.
So that's a far cry from the conversation we had a little less than 2 weeks ago of the anticipation of about $18 million in excess?
That came from OFB, sir. We kind of think, and I said it at the time, in a matter, in pursuit of good governance, I suggested that it might be more appropriate for OFB and BBMR to sit down, and so that we can go over what it is we do and how we address these potential lapses. And we have our methodology. OFB was saying that they were looking at the May CRER and extrapolating forward, just based on straight line. That's not how we do things. We take into account personnel movement, personnel gains, personnel losses, utilities, and the utilities are a growing concern with the recent increases. So we take every possible expenditure and we prorate every, well, actually we actually put a number to it so that we feel that we have a more accurate projection of where an agency will be. Okay. So even like the larger agencies and the traditional quote-unquote cash cow, public health is not going to be lapsing in the general fund.
Okay.
So, I mean, Mr. Guerrero and I, we really should sit down together and be able to come up with, I mean, we agree on revenues, but there's a far cry from where the two of us are with projections.
Okay. Along those lines, let's go back previous fiscal year. Okay, I'm looking from a historical perspective here now. Okay, was there an anticipation for for lapse funds in the previous fiscal year? Not the current, not the one we're currently in. I'm talking about FY25. Was there an anticipation of lapse funds at the time that?
When we had ARP money, when we had COVID response money, when we were able to address CIPs and other operational requirements that weren't met with the budget and their appropriation, then it took the burden off of the general fund to be able to take care of things like when we had, and Senator Gumatauta was there, when we had this display of police vehicles. And that was primarily from federal funds. Okay. So we had that at ADLO, but you know, we're augmenting our public health and public safety responses. So we did have those funds available. We don't have those funds available. There was certainly some lapses when we had those funds available.
And I need to shift now because you just said something interesting. Why don't we have those funds available now?
The obligations for...
Shifted to the general fund now?
No, we're still using ARP funds, sir. Okay. But unless you had a contract or an obligation that was valid in December of 2024, you basically could not use ARP money moving forward.
So we shifted then that responsibility to the general fund?
Not necessarily.
If there was no longer an obligation, Mr. Carlson, then why do we continue to have to fund it? If there was no longer an obligation.
We're still able to use...
And how are we funding it?
We are still able to use the funding, as you're well aware, sir, up until December of this year.
Okay. To my point, then, it goes back to, I thank you for trying to explain it at the beginning, but now your explanation even further still doesn't match. Lester, I'm sorry.
What doesn't match, sir?
Well, first off, you said that you used the money. The reason why is because we were flush with cash. But now we're no longer flush with cash.
You asked about lapses.
Yes, and I'm getting to that as to how we had lapses before and we don't have lapses now.
Okay.
Okay. And we don't have lapses now is because where we had lapses before because it wasn't a general fund obligation, which now it is.
None of the typhoon, sir, that we're talking about here has anything to do with COVID money.
Well, I'm trying to get to the lapses, not so much of the COVID money.
Okay, well, okay.
So again,
lapses here. I don't see anything here that says anything about lapses.
That's why I'm asking about it. And I prefaced it by saying, let's talk about a possible alternative funding source. Please, okay? I know where I'm going with this. Okay, and I don't mean to get at all. I'm just trying to understand where the different pots of money can be. Because again, it goes back to the initial concern that I have here. I'm lost as to what is between response and recovery. And so, you know, Mr. Chair, again, like I said, I can't go into it any further because so far, like I said, 11.4 is already so-called explained. 1.9 is still left, but which one is response and which one is recovery? Okay? That's where I was getting at. I don't mean to get into anything else. Thank you very much.
That's fair, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Speaker, can you take the chair?
Senator Wayne, is she recognized?
Mr. Chair, and I think I might have a few follow-ups with where you were going. This question is for Civil Defense, Homeland Security. Who is leading the response and recovery?
The response and recovery currently is being led by our Territory Coordinating Officer, who is Esther Aggie.
Who are all these funding requests coming to and being managed by?
By the TCO for the response and the recovery, with the assistance of Mr. Cabanez, our physical officer, overseeing the physical team.
Who is instructing the agencies how all of this funding that's being used right now for response and recovery, who is directing how these agencies are to acquire and use funds?
Thank you, Senator Joe Cabana, the Guam Recovery Office. In most of these cases, as far as instructions, as far as which funds to be used, it depends on who's handling the funds. So DOA also has a big role in this thing because they're handling the bigger funds. The Guam Recovery Office is only handling the $250,000 funding source. So I would think about DOA is handling that, you know.
So explain this to me, Joe and Lucy. How can you be the lead? Because here's the report I'm getting from several agencies. They're being instructed to use their current funds in their budget to support purchase orders, to support whatever they've got to do for response and recovery. Are you aware of that?
So the guidance is whenever a request is submitted in DLAN, for example.
Explain DLAN so the people of Guam can understand that.
All right, so DLAN is disaster land. So it's a ticketing system. It's like a trouble ticketing system. When you need something, you would open a ticket, and then that ticket will get sourced to different areas. So for example, communications. If Department of Corrections needed 18 LMR radios, they would open a DLAN ticket, send it to the communications team, the ESF2, requesting for 10 LMR radios. What the ESF2 desk will do is they will source within. They will go to GPD and say, GPD, there's a request for 10 LMRs. Can you support? If GPD says no, then we go to the next agency that we know that may have an LMR, and we ask, can you support? If there is no support there, what the desk will do is we go back to the agency and say, well, there's no support locally within the other agencies. You would need to go back and take a look at procuring your LMR radios. After that procurement, so they use their budget for the procurement. When there's a disaster declaration declared, through the Guam Recovery Office, those agencies can submit for reimbursement of that expense.
Okay, you're talking about reimbursement, but how are they spending up front?
They're utilizing their current budget fundings.
That's what I was trying to get to. Ed, So all of these agencies right now that are out there doing response and recovery, they're currently using their current year fund appropriations, correct?
I don't know that, Senator.
You don't know that?
That's a budgetary issue.
That's what?
A budgetary issue.
Oh, okay. Lester,
Yes.
that's you,
Yes.
my friend.
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes. So, Mr. Speaker, you're correct. I mean, obviously, if they don't have any lapses, they can't use funds, because if their funds are obligated, they can't stop paying payroll.
Sir, in the case of GPD, by far and away the largest expenditure for response to BAVI in this case, it's $4 million. So they have the funds now. They'll run short without this appropriation. So basically, it's like you got an allowance and you're waiting for your next allowance. Well, if you spend it all, you're short. That's where we're coming from. Yes, they're using their current year appropriation, but we also know that we're before this body, so that some of the expenses that we incurred, that we were asked to provide, will be covered, so that we're back to square one.
I understand, but you have a lump sum budget with an $88 million surplus.
That's why we're asking you to tap into the $88 million surplus, because without that, these agencies would, in the projections that I was talking about earlier, we didn't project this. We did not include this. So these are one-time costs, well, maybe two-time costs that have occurred that we're asking the body to assist us with covering.
That's why we're asking you for some more detail on a running running total. That's why we're trying to get down to this, because truth be told, you're in here for BAVI for that, correct?
Yeah.
But you got two other large appropriations here that we'll deal with later that also have a request. Well, we'll get to that when we get to that have a reimbursement account. But so now we're going to be clear, and this is why, once again, and to go back to Mr. Speaker's questions, historically, this is why I stopped it. You were spanking us basically this year and telling us quietly a few years ago, stop allowing for continuing appropriations because there was so much lapses. That's why many in this body, beat us over the head. Why aren't you giving them their continuing appropriation? Because there's lapses. That continuing appropriation is an additional appropriation. It's because some of them's in the millions that they were unable to spend. So I guess there's a change now, and we'll see when the fiscal year closes. Getting back to Homeland, have you seen any shortfalls or inability of all of the first responders, all of anybody else, to not be able to do the work they're currently doing in the field?
I think that question should go to the different agencies, but if you're asking from a perspective, all the agencies have been doing the work. They do work, but they're going to have to work with their budget people to ensure that they have those funds, and that's why we're here, to support that.
Okay,
but
let's go to the...
they are doing the work, sir.
Lucy, let's go to the tickets. How many tickets do you currently have?
On D-Land tickets?
Yes.
224.
224.
At this moment, in May, when I go back to the office, some may be open, some may be closed, but created 224.
Do you have a running total?
Yes, we do, sir. We have daily reports.
Can I know the running total?
I can get that for you. But right now, as of this morning at 6 o'clock, I believe it was 224 when I looked at the last report. But I can get that for you.
No, I want a running total on the what the cost is to those 224.
For the cost, that I would have to get. I would have to respond. I'll get it back to you.
Okay. So for our purposes, because we're going to be in here for 3 different appropriations, Lucy.
Yes, sir.
And Joe, can you help me? And I want to see the efficiency between the request and what's going on with the agencies and the running D-Land tickets. Okay. Because to me, this is where we also need to talk Lucy, maybe we'll do this so we can have a benchmark. Are you still getting tickets from Sinlaku?
No, sir. That has been closed out.
Tickets are closed out.
For Sinlaku, yes, sir.
So Lucy and Joe, I need you to do me a favor.
Okay.
I need you to give me, since it's closed, well, you're going to be here the whole time anyways, but I need you to give me a total tickets and the grand total of what those tickets dollar value is for Sinlaku.
Got it.
Okay? Because all things being equal, you've been doing this for a while, Lucy, Joe, you've been there reconciling, trying to get our reimbursements. Right. All things being equal, those tickets should match the appropriations, correct? Or if there's a balance, then that means they didn't turn in tickets for expenditures that they incurred.
If there was a request, and I know because I've said it to all the ESFs, they have to open a DLAN ticket. And that DLAN ticket should correspond to a requisition or a purchase order. Even if the agency produced their own requisition, there is a tracking so that when reimbursements come back in time or the opportunity to file for reimbursement, it could be justified along the lines.
So Lucy, you see where I'm going, right?
I see, sir.
You're the gatekeeper.
Yes, sir.
Because anything that's outside of what you closed out,
will be on the agency.
that is an obligation of this government. It's on the agency. And basically would be something we have to eat in terms of the general fund, because it won't be eligible for reimbursement unless you file an extension or an appeal of some sort that this wasn't included. But other than that, it's closed. So that dollar amount basically will tell us the story of Sinlaku. Should. So I'm going to ask you to once again just definitively on the record state, you, Joe and Lucy, you're representing, because you're representing Ms. MAGA'HAGŷ right now, that you are the lead on disaster recovery as well as the preparation for both storms.
Yes.
Yes, sir. We'll get that information for you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So I guess the reason why I want to ask that, and I know this is going to be a tough question to answer, but I'm going to ask it myself because I want to at least put it on the record. This is the first time that I've seen basically predominantly the governor's office in particular and the executive branch basically, it appears to me, is running the show. I mean, I'm looking at the former Homeland Security Civil Defense guy, and sir, I'm just going to put it on the record. I remember that, including the governor, preparation, response, recovery, they're sitting right next to you.
I beg your indulgence.
Sure.
But what are you trying to say? Because if you're talking about, there is a group, it's called an incident command. And in that incident command, for an incident, say Typhoon BAVI, you have a governor's authorized representative.
I know the guards.
Right.
I was a guard.
Yes. So you're very familiar.
Yeah,
and they
very
work
familiar.
with the TCO.
Yes.
And that TCO is identified, whether it be the HSA, it could be Mr. Lester, you know, but he's my alternate guard. So it's a whole of government. It's just not one office.
I understand completely, Lucy.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that the posture that I'm seeing
Okay.
is different. The posture that I'm as a GAR from pre-landfall to landfall, response to recovery, predominantly is Homeland Security, Civil Defense operation.
Correct.
The Chief Executive Officer, the agencies are all there.
Yes,
the
sir.
agencies are, of course, always subordinate to the Chief Executive Officer, our governor,
You're
Lieutenant Governor, the chain of command. But I have always known all of the directors, everybody else, all of the RACs, all of the GARs, everybody else answer directly to Homeland Security, Civil Defense and give all the reports, all of their reports, all of their tickets, all of everything they do straight through.
Yes, and that is what they
Yes.
do, and all directors have been advised that.
I understand.
Yes.
And that's why I'm saying that the posture that I see, at least from this position, is normally that's where we're emulating from, and that's why I want to ask this next question. How was both for Sinlaku and now, including BAVI, what was the communications and everything else that went through and the denial for the request of direct assistance?
Can you repeat that question again, Senator? Yeah.
We're getting the word that both for Sinlaku and for BAVI that we're not eligible for direct assistance. How is that determination made?
You're talking about which program, the IA or PA assistance?
Household goods. We're talking about loss of food, direct assistance.
Okay, as far as for the IA, sir, there's my understanding is there's a certain threshold in meeting the threshold to be able to qualify for FEMA's assistance as far as the IA. I know for the PA, it's been there was a declaration that was by the president on June 30th that we're already accepting applications for public assistance right now currently. And we're in the process right now of, we just had an applicant briefing just a couple of days ago, and we're already now opening up the portal where we can accept public assistance for
Sinlaku or BAVI?
For Sinlaku.
For
BAVI, sir, Senator, we're still in the process of getting the data together. As of this morning, we met with FEMA in getting them filling out the survey 123 and filling them out so we can be able to get some numbers as soon as possible to meet the deadline as well.
So we have not been denied direct assistance.
For the BAVI, nothing yet. Like I said, we're still gathering information.
And we were not denied for Sinlaku.
Sinlaku were not denied in the PA assistance at all. Not Sinlaku for the PA. That's already been approved. And like I said, we've already submitted, met with our sub-applicants to be able to submit the requests with all, that's line agencies, mayor's council, as well as nonprofit.
So that's ongoing.
That's ongoing currently right
Okay,
now.
because I think there's a miscommunication in the public right now because I hope I'm not the only one who's been hearing it, but I've been hearing a lot of complaints that where is
for BAVI
the
right
assistance?
For BAVI right now, on IA assistance right now, we've been getting a lot of feedback as far as interest, of their damages.
Okay, my final line of questioning on the overtime. Let's delineate and be clear about what is available. Let's be clear on what is available in terms of, and when it's available, the funds available for overtime and others, particularly with law enforcement and others in the field, when it comes to the services that they're providing and requesting for reimbursement.
For overtime or pay labor costs for reimbursement right now, that's being funded out of straight from their department. They submit the process, that to the process, and then, for example, Sinlaku, we require the department to process it within their budget and then submit that request to us with the proper documentation for reimbursement. As long as they submit their application for the public assistance, we will, we'll accept that, review the documentation, but they still have to comply with the pay policy within their respective agency or department.
Joe, what is the and Lucy, what's the typical turnaround time for personnel costs and overtime?
For personnel costs, if that's within the agency, they should just pay them right away within the agency.
My point
but
is,
as far as reimbursement,
yes.
as long as they submit the proper documentation to us, the turnaround time is, it won't take long. It's quick. The issue that I had, based on experience with MOR, my issue that I have is FEMA provided us the funding. The issue that I'm having right now with some of these subrecipients are documentation that they cannot provide us actual timesheets or justify that that is the overtime related to the to the operating or related to the storm or to the event. So it's documentation that I'm having an issue right now. Is them submitting those to us for me to process the reimbursements.
Have we submitted costs for Senlaku on personnel costs and overtime?
Not to FEMA yet, because like I said, we're still in the process of accepting RPAs. So right now we're still in the process, but as soon as they submit that to us, FEMA will review it, send a PDMG, and then we can request, the funding to get reimbursed.
Lester, how fast can your people get that information so they can do the request for Senlaku, because it's closed out?
That would be a DOA thing, because payroll is done by DOA, sir.
Aye, Mr. Chair. DOA.
No,
Yes.
but
the
information is readily available.
I don't need quorum.
What was that? We don't have a quorum right now, so what we need to stop.
I don't need quorum to continue. I need quorum to come back in.
Oh, quorum to come back in? Okay, then I can go ahead and leave.
Yeah, so when we get DOA back, we'll try to figure that out, because we're sitting here talking about we need money. They closed out Senlaku already. There should be ongoing right now submitting personnel costs, overtime, and all these incendiary expenses, because they just said that if everything's in order, and I'm just going to ask you for a wink, Mr. Chair. This is what you were talking about before, correct? On major infrastructure and everything else, the reimbursements take a long time because that's down the line, has to be documented, but personnel costs and overtime should be pretty short order, correct? We'll work with you on that, and I'll ask DOA when they get back. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're very welcome. And before we turn over the chair back, I think, Lucy, what the good senator was subtly asking is, where's the TCO today?
The TCO had a scheduled a medical appointment. So.
Okay. And the TCO and the Homeland Security Advisor are the same person?
I'm sorry?
The TCO and the Homeland Security Advisor are the same person?
Yes, sir, at this time.
Thought so. Okay.
Senator Gumitato, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for a bit of context, the governor of Guam put us back into Core 4, the all clear, at 10 a.m. July 7th, 2026. We are now into day 17 of recovery efforts. Let me ask Mr. Cabana, just to kind of go off my questions to DPW, can you please give us a specific completion date for damage assessments for Typhoon BAVI?
So we, like I said, we still are in the process of getting that. We're hoping to get that in a couple of more weeks, because we have to meet the 30-day deadline to submit to, to the FEMA. So we, like I said, we are. So this morning I met with FEMA, and then we are getting that as soon as possible, just to meet the deadline as well.
Yeah, thank you. I know. Again, that's why I mentioned where we're at in recovery. 17 days. You have a deadline of at least 30 days to be completed. So thank you for that. We were advised that the Department of Agriculture preliminary damage assessment, it's a good segue, for Typhoon BAVI was completed. Field activities include properly identifying eligible registered bona fide farmers. So prior to the storm, can the panel confirm when was the last time the Department of Agriculture confirmed the list of registered bona fide farmers? And is there a date of that last time they did that?
I don't have that information, sir.
All right, thank you. And if you can also maybe answer for the record, I'm not sure if you can, but what is the compliance rate as of the last quarter ending June 30, 2026 from Department of Agriculture?
I don't have that either.
Thank you. Also, can anyone confirm how did Department of Agriculture conduct the preliminary farm assessment?
I can try to remember the letter that was written by Director Chelsea Muña that was sent to the front office, and it appears that they went out and physically visited different areas of Guam to ascertain the level of damage and to make a determination and a recommendation for funding for the crop loss. So their assessment, similar to what they provided for Sinlaku, the BAVI assessment is $2 million worth of crop loss. And my staff tells me that for Sinlaku, we did load $2 million for crop loss, and we've dispersed $950,000 so far.
Okay, that gets me to my next question, and I don't think you can answer this, but then why do outreach if you already conducted island-wide field assessment activities? We're talking $2 million for what they claim would be 500 farms. It should go directly to farmers, not to fund the division. Again, for the record, is this part of the governor's ask here?
Yes, it is part of the governor's ask. It was part of what we requested in Sinlaku, and we did set up a $2 million account for crop loss. So yes, it is included in the spreadsheet that we provided to you, and we would be remiss if we didn't take into account personal assistance to farmers. They play a critical role in our sustainability here, sir.
Oh, no, I don't disagree. And I would just, Mr. Chair, I would just go back to the idea that if we're going to fund this, I'm hoping that Department of Ag can provide at least the most recent list of those bona fide farmers to date and the compliance rate from the last quarter. Again, is it 500? We don't know, but I think it makes some prudent sense to do that. Maybe I can ask Lester this question. Was the work to date, or actually maybe even to the Recovery Office, was the work to date on the CDBG-DR helpful for the efforts with BAVI from a mitigation point of view?
Senator, I can answer that about the other program.
It's disaster recovery, so Lester, you have any thoughts on, was it helpful at all?
What was that acronym? What does it stand for again?
The Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery that is done by the Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority. This is relative to Mawar, but my question was any of that effort helpful for BAVI response recovery, perhaps from a mitigation point of view?
I'm not aware of any correlation.
Okay, I'll ask this question. Is any part of the housing, infrastructure, and facilities mitigation, economy, and logistics issues helpful for this current disaster?
I think that would be under GURA. I don't have that information for you, Senator.
Okay, Mr. Chair, why I asked the question is that we're here to look at the totality of response recovery activities. Mawar, which was a previous storm, there was millions of dollars pumped into this community to help mitigate the next disaster. Now we've come full two disasters, so just trying to see if it was helpful. That was my question. I have a few more questions. In their final report to the President of the United States on May 7th, the President's Council to assess the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the Council noted a central issue with the current disaster management system is the amount of taxpayer money used for administrative costs. Now, they wrote in their 75-page report, in fact, a substantial part of grant funding is spent on administrative and management expenses at both the federal and state, local levels, saying in total almost 25 cents on every dollar can be provided for administrative expenses. Is the OPA and our government contracted accountants involved in this particular process with BAVI that is being presented as part of the special session over the last day and a half? Are they involved in any of this?
Not to my knowledge, sir, and I don't really actually see a reason because the OPA looks at stuff after the paint is dry.
And while I understand that, but FEMA's already critical of how this government handles finances, so it seems prudent to improve how disaster relief funds are used to build a more resilient Guam. And in that report, it does specifically say that states and territories, obviously it's not a mandate, but it is saying they should be more involved in this process. This is the key part of the process that they should be a part of in the recovery efforts. And so I'm just asking that question to this group.
I actually agree that the more help we have on the front end, it will make the product at the end that much better. I don't believe that the mandate of the OPA is to get involved in the beginning, though. So we would have to take a look at that. I would welcome more eyes on anything and everything we're doing. It just is going to make a better widget.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your input on that, Lester. And why I asked this, because we're here asking for $13.3 million right now. And I actually appreciated your earlier statement that since we were going in this way, the BBMR director felt it important. Maybe this might be a chance to try to help support BAVI response and recovery efforts. There's no fault in that. But when we think about $13.3 million, if we're in the Stafford Act response or emergency now, that's an assumption based on the number that we are looking at a $53.3 million total for this response and recovery for BAVI. I know that number's got to be much bigger than that. So I guess for me, I know that's not a cost share, right? I know that that's the case. Because then at some point, we're going to have to come back here. Because I know that I was not part of this branch during Mawar, but I recall that they came back to the legislature to help support some of the activities. Again, we are in a Stafford Act disaster declaration today. So I'm assuming that this could be a bigger ticket. With the way that the federal government is now moving towards how they manage emergency response for natural disasters or emergencies in this case, it's assumption that $53.2 million is not what the federal government is probably going to spend to help take care of BAVI. That number is probably going to be much greater based on the input from the DPW director, who made mention that even just the seawall alone is in the hundreds of millions of dollars that's going to have to be spent to be able to mitigate what just happened from BAVI. A lot probably had to do with Senlaku. Is that a fair assessment? Am I in the wrong place? If we were to chunk it out?
No, you're not. One difference between Mawar, Senlaku, and BAVI is that this body appropriated $50 million for the FEMA reimbursement process. So this body went ahead and took a forward-looking position and provided up to $50 million. I think we funded $44 million of that. So we have the cost share in the bank to be able to take the claims and then have the local match to be able to facilitate everything and get stuff back. As Mr. Byrne mentioned yesterday, we still haven't got one reimbursement for Mawar. So, I mean, we're kind of like waiting for things to start happening, but the body did provide that much needed local share fund. And it wasn't for anything in particular. It was first come, first served, first in, first out. And we still have a decent amount of money in there, but we're still actively working to get Mawar closed out.
Right. In fact, that's why I was mentioning there was only 17 days since the all clear, and I know that we're still got kind of a bit to go. But when I think about Mawar, in my conversations with the FEMA region director, I know that he had told me I just disclosed that he had mentioned that there was monies for Mawar given. It was a bit of flexibility to allow the government to be able to do what they had to do in preparation for Sinlaku. And I believe that would have been the Guam Power Authority was where that went. And this is not the venue for this particular debate on that. But I'm just trying to get to the ground. If we're going to have to come back here, Mr. Chair, to deal with another. I mean, I know we have pre-landfall and now the 13 and 3. So combined, are we still going to have to come back at some point to support this particular disaster that we're in now with BAVI? So, Mr. Chair, that's all my questions. And again, thank you, Lester. Thank you, Homeland Security and Civil Defense, for your time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. And that's why, once again, when we had our oversight, I've asked the administration and I've asked Homeland Security to continue to communicate to book these appropriations as cost share, because we're in the front of this. So the fact is, I don't see why we wouldn't qualify. We're already paying through local appropriation for response recovery, and then we're going to have to go back and deal with the share. We put our share up front. Also following the law, once again, and we'll ask for that documentation, you're exactly right. We need the crop loss assessment because that's what the law says. DOAG does the assessment. They go and they give that to the governor. The governor requests an appropriation, not just on top of the napkin, an appropriation based on the assessment to us. That's how the law reads. Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Sidusmasi, Mr. Chair, Biba Betnes to the people of Guam, and thank you again to the panel for spending your First Friday with us. You know, when we first got the information from the speaker about being called into a special session, I really thought it was going to be to address a lot of the shortfalls and shortchanging that Mr. Carlson had shared with the body relative to the substitute bill 266. And so with this measure, the governor has sent down, I think, well, just what happened yesterday, and talking with some constituents last night, they were watching these proceedings, and it kind of seemed like at the beginning of the committee of the whole, you had the mayor's council say, oh no, we're good, we don't need any money. And then as we got deeper into the discussion, respectfully, it kind of appeared like Mr. Carlson was pulling numbers out of, let's just say pulling numbers out of thin air to kind of try and get to 13 million. There was even a point where he said to the Director of Public Works, hey, you good with 5 million, you're good. And so I know some of my colleagues that kind of question, like, what's the methodology we're coming up with this 13 million? Because just specifically with the 13, just for Mr. Carlson, I think we got up to like 9, and then you're kind of asking the body to just round up to 13. And, you know, of course, we want to support the BAVI recovery, but I think the bigger question is, as we, as a body, sent the budget bill up to the governor's desk, there are many critical areas that remain unfunded. And Mr. Carlson, you know this firsthand because you actually provided us with a list of these things to include, you know, different services for kids with autism, you know, services for those with severe emotional, mental disorders, foster homes, Gumamami. The list goes on and on and on of these critical agencies and programs that serve our island's most vulnerable were left unfunded. So that's kind of the problem I have with the bill is, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it appears that this bill will suck up all the excess revenues that we thought we would be able to use to fund a lot of these critical agencies and programs in a supplemental budget bill. So I guess my first question, Mr. Carlson, is if this bill should pass as written, how much money will be left to do things like fund a residential treatment fund shortfall of $700,000 to fund the GIBWIC programs that are a victim of the federal cuts and freezes. So if you could just, for the record, answer that, Mr. Carlson, and good morning.
Thank you, Senator Barnett, for that insightful question. Just for the public's record, 2 out of the 3 items contained in this bill were a subject of, what do we call it, a special oversight hearing that was conducted before BAVI hit, and BAVI became an issue and a subject for discussion. So the 2 items, the relief for the airport authority and also some assistance for the child care providers was the subject of a discussion, I want to say late June, but well before the budget discussions. So Senator GUÐHAN asked for the administration to draft a bill to take care of those 2 items. So we did. And BAVI then occurred, and we thought it best to bring what we're referring to as an omnibus bill before the body to address issues that we actually discussed publicly, at least 2 of them extensively. So we would be, I think, remiss if we dropped everything that we brought to this body and said, well, no, we can't address the airport, we can't address the child care providers because we need to do something as a result of what was passed. And to be honest with you, sir, when it comes to the budget bill, we got the budget bill. I know the body passed it Monday, but I think I didn't actually get an electronic copy in my inbox until 5:30 on Wednesday. So I haven't had much time to review it because I've been here. My staff is looking at it, but I know that there was some good stuff that was done.
Let me save you a little bit of time on the review. So
well,
if you're watching,
your clock's not running, and you asked me a question.
Okay, I said.
So you're asking me whether or not the money that we're asking for you to consider should not be considered because of something that may not have been considered in the budget. I don't think that's a fair question. I think we have an issue that we brought to the body before the budget discussions began that is still, especially with the airport, they need the money yesterday. The child care providers have been without their full compensation, and I know they're hurting. So, look, this stuff came up. We can deal with things, one issue at a time. We're here to talk about this.
Yeah, it's all relative, respectfully, Director Carlson. I mean, I'm sure you know my stance. My stance is we shouldn't have continued with the 0.5% rollback, and that would have left more revenues to address all these things we're talking about. But, I can't help but note the irony when we were in here in the budget session. I asked Mr. Guerrero, why weren't these critical programs and services funded in the budget bill? And I almost feel like, here I am asking you the same question. So I understand the need for the funding, but you made a very strong case that we weren't supporting these critical agencies and departments. And I could go down the list of all the things. You gave us the list, Mr. Carlson. Yes. So that's what I'm kind of saying is you gave us this list and you told us that we needed to fund all of these critical areas, and I agree. But now you send down this bill and none of those things are in the bill. And if we pass this bill, you still haven't answered the question, how much money will be left in the excess revenues to fund all of the critical programs and services that were left unfunded, underfunded, status quo, shortchanged by the substitute budget bill?
Senator Barnett, I provided a couple of handouts yesterday. One in particular. Maybe you should take a look at it.
I mean, you could always just save us the trouble and
I could, but you know, I'm not elected to sit in your position. So you're asking me a question. I gave you a handout yesterday.
Yes, you did. And so basically, I guess I'll answer the question. Lahat totally funds. There won't be funds left over to fund all of these critical agencies that the administration came down here and told us we absolutely needed to fund. And I agree. I don't think we should leave kids with autism or those suffering from severe emotional and mental distress. I don't think we should leave them out in the cold. I don't think they should be supplemental to a budget process. But, you know, again, when I heard that we were going into the special session, I thought that these were going to be the items that were addressed. And instead, what we're seeing, what we saw yesterday, was, again, pulling numbers out of thin air, trying to come up to $13 million to justify this part of the bill. You know, I'm eager to hear the information about the child block grant, because I think that might be a little urgent, and that's part of it. It's, you know, the premise for calling this special session was that there was a great sense of urgency, but when we come in here, you know, we have the governor out of one side of her mouth telling us that it's urgent to address this bill, but then she's going and doing things like giving everyone a holiday. So, you know, I mean, I'm asking for your help here to plead the case, and I just don't think that we're really hearing what we need to hear. You know, the people of Guam watching this, they're probably also scratching their head on this first section of the bill. You know, I'm eager to hear again about the child block grants, but thank you. And so just going back to the Mawar response and civil defense, you know, I've talked to individuals who got the roofs from the Mawar roof. Remember that program you had? I forget what it was called, Roofs Up or something. But so there were individuals who had the new roofs put in, and then they lost those roofs in Sinlaku and BAVI. So I think that, you know, kind of is indicative of we can do all these things like repair. And that's another thing that, you know, we give $50 million for Mawar. We give all this money to respond to the oncoming storms, and then we still get slammed. We still go a week without power. We still go a week without water, yet we continue to fund all of these things up front. And when I was growing up, it was my understanding that the agencies just funded it out of their budgets, and then they try to get the reimbursements. So I wanted to ask about the individual assistance. So every legislation that we've passed and funded from Mawar forward has contained a provision for individual assistance. And because of the, you know, various shenanigans going on with our local government and the expenditure of the federal funds, combined, I think, with unwillingness maybe from this federal administration to dole out aid to places like Guam, it kind of seems like the chances of our people receiving the individual assistance is almost zero. And I understand you're appealing that decision, so I don't know who can answer this, but was there at any time from Mawar forward where the administration granted the people of Guam individual assistance based on, you know, damage survey data? The language is in all of the bills.
Thank you, Senator. For the Mawar, there is some individual assistance that was in place for Mawar. For Sinlaku, we've through the survey 1, 2, 3, we've already gotten some, but the threshold for the IA for Sinlaku was not met based on FEMA. However, the BAVI, we've already started also the
Sorry,
process.
Mr. Can you kind of go into a little bit about what the threshold is and why we didn't meet it?
Yeah, in order to meet a federal assistance on IA for FEMA, there is a number. I don't have the numbers with me right now on that, but they have to submit a certain threshold, and then that threshold is what determines FEMA to come up with, you know, to authorize or approve the threshold for FEMA. So FEMA has a process to meet that. I don't have that information right now. I know. I think for the IA for Sinlaku, I think there's about 88 individuals that apply for assistance for the Sinlaku. Just based on the BAVI, based on the emails I've been getting, there's quite a few on the BAVI that are applying for, that's submitting the request for IA. So we're gathering that information, numbers, and through my staff under public assistance are helping out with FEMA, going out now and assessing together with and meet with the mayors to get those numbers up.
Okay, that was kind of the impetus behind what we had tried to do with providing the $1,000 grants with the storm assistance, the SUFU Act, is because we've seen, again, not a lot of support for individuals coming from the federal government. Back in the day when we were, with the Omar, the Uri, the Roy, the big storms that, we all grew up facing, it seemed like the aid was a lot quicker in coming. I mean, there was FEMA, there was Red Cross, and now, outside of like feeding at the shelters, we don't see a lot of this individual assistance. So I don't know who can answer this in here, but is any of this $13 million going to be designated to provide individual assistance to our families?
I think only the crop loss, sir.
Mr. Cabana, can you kind of you've been doing this a long time, so am I correct in saying that it seems like the individual assistance on the federal side and with a lot of the, entities that used to provide it, is it kind of dwindled down? I mean, it seems very, almost non-existent. We've seen the reloading for people who are on SNAP, but all of our families who don't meet those different income eligibility guidelines are kind of left out in the cold.
Thank you again, Senator. Yeah, as far as IA, so like I said, for the Guam Recovery Office, this is new to them. But for the MOA, that was handled by another department, on that, and that went well. Senlaco, we try to do as much as our best to be able to get, us to qualify for that, and that apparently, that didn't go through because of, like I said, the number of IA for assistance was not that, the amount's not there, the number's not there to be able to meet that. But as far as funding source and that, sir, we're working with FEMA to see how we be able to get that assistance, for us.
And then, Senator, you were mentioning about Red Cross. So Red Cross, working with the mayors, have been going out and finding constituents or residents that need assistance. Red Cross is also in the shelter, in the Tier 2 shelters, and they're doing what is called a application opening, right? Where they sit down with each of the families and they go through and they ask them what do they need or how can they help to get them where they need to be. So that is ongoing. You may not see it as active, but they are out in the field and they work directly with the mayors. And again, through the through the recovery process, they've been going and getting applications in so that the team can go out and do a joint assessment.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Lucy. I'm familiar with that. I serve on the Salvation Army Advisory Board. So we've been out at the shelters, but the type of assistance that Red Cross and the Salvation Army is providing, I mean, we can't provide transformative funding like our government should be able to provide if we only prioritize the people over the profits for the big businesses. I also wanted to ask, so you had the DLAN tickets for BAVI. Are you able to provide the body, and I hope the chair will indulge, with copies of that and a dollar amount? Do all those tickets in the DLAN for the BAVI recovery total up to $13 million, or what are we looking at here?
If there is an associated cost with the DLAN ticket, then yes, I can provide it. So if an agency submits a DLAN ticket, say for a pallet of water, I can tell you what that cost is. But if the agency does their own work within their agency without providing a DLAN ticket, that cost will have to come from that agency. So I do know how many DLAN tickets were processed for Senlaco, and I do know how many tickets were processed for BAVI, Senator Duenas. As of 15 minutes ago, Senlaco had 388 tickets. But I'll go back and do the report as you requested. And as for BAVI, we have 249.
So can you provide a little more on the process? So when they submit the DLAN ticket, I understand, they say, hey, something's broken at the school, but is there a dollar amount attached to that, or when do we attach the dollar amounts to these requests?
The DLAN ticket, what we request from the ESFs is that when they, for example, the schools, the superintendent mentioned yesterday fencing. If there was a damage at the school and she had her ESF put in a DLAN ticket for assistance with a fence at Astumbo Elementary, for example, their procurement people would have to go out and get their contractor, get the amount, do all the paperwork required, and then that amount will be entered into DLAN. But the process, again, is they take it out of their budget. They do the work, they process the purchase order out of the budget, and then when a presidential declaration is made, through the recovery office, they will submit their documentation, which is why every time there's an activation, we remind our ESFs to please remind your directors, your finance department, your procurement department. Information is key. Take pictures before, take pictures after, and keep all your receipts. Because when it's time to get reimbursement, that is exactly what they're going to ask us for. We have to be able to prove that the $1 we spent was spent accurately.
And we've had problems doing that, unfortunately. I'm just deeply disappointed that, we had this conversation during the budget process about, all of these different areas and all of these different vulnerable populations that were being left out in the cold. So for the administration to send down this bill, which I'm sure there are components of it that are critical, but to send down this bill and fail to address all of the things that we were raising hell about in here, it's just very disappointing that it's not just this Republican majority, but the administration now seems to be joining in and leaving vulnerable people, kids with autism, those struggling with substance abuse addiction, reduced police cycles, status quo budgets. It's just very disappointing to see through the submission of this bill what's happening with those very important and critical services and populations and how we're failing to address them. So, Sijulis Masi, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Senator. Colleagues, we will take a lunch break and come back at 2 to finish round 2 of this opening segment. We're in recess.